Hey everyone, One Dragon here. Today we're testing the craftable modifications in 1.3. A couple of people in the comments on my previous video stated that the crafting modifications are now tied to the crafting skill progression and not to the perks or player level like in patch 1.2. So today I'll confirm what crafting skill progression level is required for each rarity tier. If you unlock the modifications at a common or white rarity level, do they level up with you? And how it impacts mods in the open world, so the ones that are in containers and in stores. I'll also take a look at how some of the mods scale, specifically taking a look at the Armadillo and Crunch mods, so you can decide whether or not it's worth going for that legendary rarity. So, in case you're new or are starting a new playthrough, one place that I get a lot of the modification specs from is this Wraith building, or where the quest Riders in the Storm occurs. It is here, this Wraith camp, out in the Badlands. Now, as you can see, I'm here well before the quest tells me to go here. You'll notice that all the enemies are significantly higher level than I am, but you can still sneak past them and get into the building, and I'll show you that right now. Now normally what I do to get into this Wraith camp is I just walk up to the gate. I normally keep an eye on the minimap. You'll notice that all the enemies are going to be way higher level than I am. And I normally just walk in through the right there. You can walk in through an entrance to the left where there's a breach in the wall. But yeah, this time around I had some good spawns for the NPCs. And here we go. Once you hop in through that window, you should notice that there are modifications around very easily. Got resist, armadillo, crunch, even another armadillo there. And if you go further into the building, which I'll do just really quickly, you can come down into this basement area, and there should be modifications here as well. We've got another armadillo there. I'll leave that one. Backpack and penetrator. So I'll leave a couple of mods here, like the armadillo mod here, and I'll come back to see if they scale. Alright, so now for the crafting part. We're at level 3, and just to confirm once again, our crafting specs for the modifications are still common, which means they're the white tier. Now what I'm going to do is craft Ashura, which is probably the most optimal item to craft, both for money and free crafting experience. Okay, so it seems that crafting level 4 gets you the uncommon ones, and we'll keep going. Okay, so it looks like at level 9 crafting experience, they do upgrade to the rare tier. Level 14, you can craft the epic ones, which were the previous maximum tier. Finally, we've hit 18 crafting, and at 18 crafting, it unlocks the crafting specs for legendary modification. I hope that they eventually update the skill progression rewards here, because it doesn't clearly state at what level do you actually unlock these modifications. Like for example at level 4, when you're supposed to unlock the uncommon one, it just says reduce crafting cost by 5%. The crafting specs at gun vendors will also level up with you, and the crafting specs in the containers that you find around will also level up. So I returned to the Wraith camp and checked, and they were legendary tier when I was legendary. There you go. To recap, you can get the modification specs at a common level, and it will scale up with you as you level up your crafting skill progression. Common is less than 4. Uncommon is available at level 4. Rare at level 9. Epic at level 14. And legendary at level 18. I've also put the crafting cost of modifications here so you can see that they have unique component requirements at each tier. This one is specifically the crunch mod or a gun mod. It seems that most of the clothing mods have similar specs, and same with the gun mods. I do have crafting cost reduction perks on, and of course you gain some reduction as the progression rewards are leveled. In terms of melee modifications, I couldn't find anything new there. There were no crafting specs, so I don't think you can make legendary melee modifications right now, but maybe they'll add that in the future. Obviously, since the mods rise in tier as you level your skill progression, it's just better to find the specs in the open world rather than buying them from the gun merchants. But in case there's any merchant only specs in the future, here are the current prices. You can see that legendary gets quite expensive at 27,500 eddies. In terms of scaling, if we're looking specifically at the crunch mod, the damage starts at 5 at common and then increases by 1 for each tier, reaching 9 damage by legendary. From here, I'll discuss specifically the Armadillo mods. I personally prefer crit stacking over armor stacking, but I decided to look into it anyway just in case they release some harder content in future. These are the prices for crafting common to legendary clothing modifications. The main difference is that there is a legendary component requirement, unlike the gun mods. The Armadillo mod scales in two ways. First, raising the tiers from common to legendary. The gap from each tier changes depending on the level you craft them. So at level 13, it's roughly an 8 armor difference, and then this eventually grows to a 30 armor difference once you hit level 50. The second way in which the Armadillo mods scale is by increasing the armor by about 5.3 per level at the legendary tier. You'll have to recraft the mods every time you want the additional stats, but if you're invested into crafting, money should not be an issue. So from having 20 of the new legendary Armadillo mods, you can have 5,400 armor just from the mods themselves, and if you slot them on every piece, you can have insane amounts of armor. I've got 7,141. As I said, I normally don't stack armor, but it's an option to you if you'd like to do that. So if you don't invest into crafting, there are uncommon modifications available at gun merchants to just buy, and up to epic rarity Armadillo mods at the clothing stores. I'm unsure if the epic rarity versions appearing at clothing stores is tied to character level, or if it's tied to other things like street cred. Because typically the clothing store items are based on street cred, so that might be when they appear. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more Cyberpunk content, consider subscribing. I'll see you later, chimps.